Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Diablo 4 video, and this time we're going to be looking into the actual pet minion. I'm not sure what you guys want to call it. I'm always calling it minion builds, but in Diablo franchise, everyone's calling it pet builds. So this is a pet minion, Necromancer, build during the early access / beta of Diablo 4. Obviously, we only have access to Act 1, which means that we can't verify which is best or not. This is the best version that I think I could have made out of the actual pet version of the build. This is not any good clearing version such as the currently broken Blood Mist Corpse Explosion shenanigans. We'll see what happens with that. Maybe it'll get nerfed, probably. But we're not looking to make it the meta of the meta of the meta. We are looking at what we can do best when it comes to actual minion play. And that brings us to this video. I'm going to talk about the state of minions in Diablo 4, and I wanted to show you the build that I have. So before I go into the actual topic, let me show you the build in action and the tree real quick. Basically, what we've done is we're running with Decompose as the basic skill, which is giving us, when the enemy dies while being decomposed, we get to extra 10 essence, which we don't really care about. You and your minions will increase damage to enemies who are being decomposed, so as long as I'm holding down right click, I'll do more damage. And then we're going into Blight. And Blight is slowing the enemies down and making my minions do more damage against them, which is, again, the main reason here. We also will have a legendary power, which I'll go through before we show you the gameplay. Huge Flesh is Lucky Hit, allows us to generate corpses. It's the way Necromancer's minion play is to generate a ton of corpses so that we can use the abilities. More of that in a bit, so this is very important. I went for the Skeletal Warrior Mastery to give increased damage. I also went for Skeletal Mage Mastery for increased damage. We picked up the Decrypify. This is to lower the damage output of the enemies. And also we have the possibility of getting stuns with a 10% chance on Lucky Hit, as well as enemies hit while afflicted with Decrypify have 50% chance to reduce your active cooldowns by 1 second, which is really nice. Outside of that, this party here only has one really in a decent approach, which would be the Necrotic Carapace. This makes it so that whenever corpses are formed from your skills or from your minion skills, fortify myself for 6% base life. This is how I very quickly ramp up my fortify to being 100% of my HP. Then I had to put 2 more points, which I just shoved into Reaper's Pursuit for some movement speed, as well as Gloom to make enemies take extra minion damage from the shadow. The problem is I don't really need this. I don't know where else to put it. It really doesn't matter where you put this. I could have gone with anything, or more points in here, or even ramped up the Decrypify instead. I really haven't decided where I wanted to put those points, because it's very hard for me to tell what scales minions and what doesn't scale minions, which I'll talk about a lot, because I could have taken the increased damage to distant enemies, but I don't know if this scales the minions or not. Anyways, so I went into the ultimate, and first off I tried the Army of the Dead. Pretty nice, big, cool ability. I actually decided not to use this, so we are actually playing with full action bar skills, because it was better to go for the passive attack speed as well as getting the death's defense. This allowed me to have my minions kept up alive versus the world boss Ashava, and they barely died there. And throughout the process of generating tons of corpses, I was able to resummon anytime. At any time any of my minions died, I had a free will of just summoning my minions because of the amount of corpses I was generating. And then I went for Hellbent Commander to increase the damage, and the main reason for this is because of the main legendary aspect that we're using to increase our damage outputs. That would be the imprint on a weapon, two-handed weapon, because it scales it up much higher, and that is giving me increased attack speed. As soon as any of my minions attacks or deals damage, they will get increased attack speed for 3 seconds, up to 72%. So they get a ton of attack speed. This is how we're gonna see. You're gonna show that. I'm gonna show that on the boss here, which is the Dead Mother in Light's Watch, I believe this is called. Yep. It's just a stupid amount of single target damage. So that's how we get the damage up from it. One of our rings will obviously be using the skeleton gain increased damage while alive up to 22% after 10 seconds. So basically just having them alive will give them a ton of extra damage. Very important. And outside of that, I did use an extra legendary power for my ring, which is the Decomposed Spawns Corpses. That will give me 10 essence. Don't really need it, because it's all about just making sure I have Decrypify and Blight on. You'll have that. You're going to generate so much essence anyways. On the amulet, it's important that we went for skeletal mages. There's 2 reasons for this. One is to obviously have ranged minions being the more heavy emphasis on their damage output. This helps clearing, which is the bad part of this build, which I'll show you in the gameplay here in a moment. But most importantly, it's because of the helmet enchant that we have, which I'll show you in a bit as well. On the boots is where I shoved in the skeletal warriors, just extra damage. We're not going to get 3 or anything like that. We're just going to have 2 extra. On our pants, sorry, we're using basic skill, which we're going to use a lot. We'll give our damage reduction for 6%, 6 seconds for 25%, which is just insane. Like, you don't want to play without it. On the gloves, I went for the Decompose, can chain up to 2 additional targets. This is just to ramp up more corpses. If I'm hitting more targets, this ramps up my Fortify much faster and gives me more corpses to play with. Also works very well for party play when it comes to corpse explosion. On the body armor, I went with a Blight, which we're using to make many enemies take increased damage, but this one pulls them together like a vacuum, and it's really cool to use as well for the extra damage approach. Now, we finally, after a lot of farming, got ourselves the Cold Skeletal Mages cast Blizzard that deals a very low amount of damage, but enough to kill normal and regular enemies. And this will continuously chill the enemies for 8% over 6 seconds. This is actually a really cool way to increase the efficiency of both your defensive layer but also clearing, because then you don't always have to have your minions go up and attack the regular enemies, and they will simply die to the Blizzard, which is helped through the chest armor, giving us the Blight Defile area, pulling enemies in as a vacuum. So that's basically the legendaries and the stats. I don't know what stats to go for. I'll talk about that in a bit. I went for a lot of intelligence. As you can see, I got 164 intelligence. And the gameplay for clearing looks like this. Keep in mind that you can use the golem skill again, which will make him taunt almost a screen wide area. Using Raise Skeleton on a corpse will heal your skeletons for 10% of the max HP, but also give them 20% increased damage for 5 seconds. The timer will be above the bar, so that's why we want to have a lot of corpses. Other than that, I'm just going to cast the Blight, and I will cast the Skeleton, and you see the timer, and I'll cast the Curse. And then I'm just going to hold down right click for Decompose. That's the entire playstyle of this character. Clearing is, again, not the best, which you'll see. But you will see some blizzards falling from the skies thanks to the helmet enchant. So, now that you have the baseline idea of what the hell I'm doing and what you're watching right now, I wanted to use this video to discuss the approach. You saw the blizzard there, actually. You can see it right here. Just killed everything without me stopping to attack it, which is really nice for helping the clearing of this build. Now, the reason for this video is not to showcase this build, because obviously this is Act 1 and things are going to change when we get to the point of the full release. Things might be changed in terms of patch notes and all that jazz. You know, it's impossible to be in a position where we can say that, hey, this is going to be a really good build to play. So, taking that aside, let's go for the video. So the video is going to talk about the state of minion play in this game. Now, I've been having some issues with this, and most importantly, those issues is surrounding the minion AI. Now, obviously, as you've noticed, the clearing is a bit so-so. I have a blast right now, so it's, you know, way better right now. However, the problem with clearing is the lack of area coverage. And when I say area coverage, it's something I tend to talk about a lot when it comes to Path of Exile, for example. And that could be in the form of having splash/AoE-like abilities from things like the melee splash or area attacks from your melee minions. But it also could come in different variations and forms when it comes to your ranged minions, either in the form of, well, Blizzard in this case, or we could have it in the form of multiple projectiles or different projectile behavior, such as the projectiles chaining upon impact, or forking, or piercing, all of those things which currently does not exist. This presents us with an inherited baseline bad clearing for pure minion playstyle in the game. Very disappointed with that decision, and that is the case, and I was hoping that the Blizzard would do more damage than it is, because that would be a cool solution to that end. Sadly, that is, as you can see, not the case. So that is something I'm rather disappointed with, and if you disagree, let me know in the chat, in the comments. I'll read that later. Another thing I wanted to point out is the efficiency of the minions is extremely hard to verify, and that is because of the very vague information that we have in terms of what scales the minions and what doesn't scale the minion, because the only information we have is a little tip in a loading screen that says, hey, we are going to be letting you know that minions inherit most of your stats by 30% of them. And then they gives us 2 examples. The examples being, hey, you can get 30% of your critical strike chance and 30% of your attack speed. That's the only information we have that is guaranteed. But we don't know what else we get. Another thing I want to point out is that I actually forgot, I'll show you that right now, is the Book of the Dead. So if you look at the golem, we don't have the other golems, we only have bone golem. There is a way for us to get thorns. Instead of inheriting 30%, they get 50. So by checking this, now I know that my minions are inheriting thorn stats from me by 30%. But if they're getting any other stats, I have no idea. There's no way to verify this. There's no information about it. I've reached out to Rod Ferguson. I've reached out to Adam Fletcher. I'm not getting any information. No one's responding. So I don't know what else to say. But to finalize the build, as I didn't do this. Bone, we are using the shedding a corpse for the reason we talked about before, when they take damage. When it comes to the skeletal mages, we will be using the cold version if you have the blizzard. If you don't have the blizzard, then I would suggest using the shadow mages for 5 additional shadow bolt. There's a stupid amount of extra damage, but using the cold one allows you to actually apply vulnerability, which is a ton of damage when they freeze enemies, so it's really good for this build. And the melee minions, as you can see, they're using the Reapers, and that is again to get more corpses. And I think that you can get more DPS out of the build if you use the additional skirmishers instead. The problem with this is that obviously if you run into a situation where they start dying like a Shava or any hard in-game boss without proper gearing, you're gonna need to resummon them, and you're not gonna have an excessive amount of corpses to use to buff your minions up and also resummon them if you're not using the Reapers. I do want to say that I really like this system. It's easy, it's simple, it's straightforward, but it gives you enough power and enough choices or options to make this an interesting addition to the game. I like this because you can also choose to sacrifice them, so you can't summon your skeletal warriors at all, but you can choose to which kind of sacrifice buff you want to get if you want to play a non-minion build. I just really like this system. But that kind of enough about that. Once we get to the boss, I want to show you the single target insanity that this build has. It's you know, it's not a broken ass you're gonna two-shot the build kind of werewolf strategy, but it is going to show you some really crazy single target damage output, which is what this build is really good at. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out. We also have to keep in mind that the game is currently designed in a way where your build is only a baseline backbone of your character from your skill tree, or not skill tree, I don't know, rather call this a skill twig, but this is just a backbone of it. Then you have the Paragon board to finalize or fine-tune it from there. Outside of this, the build is more defined by your legendary powers, and I think that's pretty cool. I really do, but it also means that we're very limited in seeing what things will actually be good or what will be bad, what will be the meta or whatever you want to look for. Those things are really hard to tell without having more content than Act 1, because whatever we find now might be super goated right now and terrible further down the line. For example, the people that have played the endgame beta, they have reported that minion play is absolutely dog shit in the late game, in that version of the game, which hopefully will have changed, obviously. So it's impossible again for us to verify what will actually be good or not. So I will not be making any showcases telling you, oh, this is going to be great for this or that, because the only thing I can do is essentially tell you what would be good for Act 1, which is going to be nothing compared to the rest of the game. Either way, so with that out of the way, the minion AI has a couple of issues. First things first, when you're running through the map area, the open areas, your minions will sometimes randomly start attacking things that you're running across, which is, you know, a good thing that they're actually aggressive. The problem is that since you have no way of controlling whether or not your minions are going to come back to you, no convocation, no teleporting, no control like last epoch where I can tell the minions to go somewhere. If I use an attack like this, cast a curse, my minions are actually trying to move over there and try to do it over here, and now I'm out of mana. They're not doing anything, they're just standing there, so I can't force them to go somewhere. They're gonna be around me, so that causes some issues in those situations, and I feel like the minion control is a bit so-so. Also, the skeletons don't body block you, as you can see, you're facing through them, but they are body blocking each other sometimes. So when you're in combat, say this bridge here, I can have a bunch of melee skeletons hitting the target here, and I can have a bunch of other melee skeletons not moving up to attack because they can't get to their target, which is why we're focusing on, one of the main reasons we're focusing on ranged skeletons rather than our melee skeletons, and that's a big AI issue, and I'm not very happy with that decision either. So yeah, I guess I'm a bit biased to a lot of these things, but I'm not very happy with certain designs of this, and there are some issues and concerns with the minion AI, as well as the other things I've been mentioning in this video. And I wanted to bring this video up as more of a discussion topic, so if you guys have any other opinions, or if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below, and I'm going to show you the single target on this boss right now. So this is basically how far we've gotten. So I basically put up my curses, I get some corpses, we buff him up, now we get the buffs, now I'll have my damage. But he's already dead, so it doesn't really matter. So as you saw here, I didn't even get a chance to buff my skeletons because it takes me a few seconds to get my corpse up. So the boss was already halfway dead before I got the buff to actually start dealing damage to him. The single target on this build is hilariously good, in my opinion. But the clearing is so-so. Now, I haven't had time to try out the bone version of this build. I believe the bone crit version is insanely good as well. And I don't even have the legendary effect for the aspect of the dead. That's another thing you should mention as well. Saw that in the chat. Thank you, Shadow. There is a legendary aspect that will give you a ton more DPS once you've used the Army of the Dead, which would make this kill even better. So there's a lot of things you can do to improve the efficiency of this character. Again, though, I do want to point out this is a rather finished gear with the legendary powers that we have access to that we want to use for this build in Act 1. So it's really, really odd or weird to showcase something like this. Anyways, I don't want to prolong this video too much. If you disagree or agree or have any other takes you want to show, or if you want to discuss anything about this, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to read through all of the comments. I had a lot of fun with the minions. I would say that the TLDR is lack of clearing solutions. AI behavior having some concerns, and other than that, I just need more content to verify. I think that the vast majority of builds in this game will be completely neglected throughout the first couple of acts in the campaign because other builds or skills will just straight up be better working on a bare bone strategy without legendary powers, because I do not want to play with pets without some of these legendary powers, especially the attack speed one. So I feel like there's definitely some issues in that sense. But then again, it's an MMO ARPG with an emphasis on the MMO. I think it's fine because I feel like the end game is where the gameplay is supposed to be. That's how I feel with other MMO games. The leveling is just a nuisance you got to go through till you actually get to play the game. Anyways, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe for more content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. So till then, stay safe and keep rocking.